Internet, welcome to episode number 269 of the Comic Watchers Show. He's Chad, I'm Matt. This is our show about comics. Thank you for joining us. And joining us this week is Jerry Caritas, going to talk to us about Scott Snyder's The Cloak Room, now funding on Kickstarter. Jerry, how are you, sir?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
Awesome. And Chad, how about you, bud?
It's not as hot up here in Albany this week, so I'm doing good.
I love it. Well, Jerry, thank you for joining us. The Cloak Room, like I said, now funding on Kickstarter. It is an anthology series. And,
yes, sir.
And I'm going to let you tell us about it. But before we do that, I would love to hear a little bit more about you and your comics journey and just how you came to love these wacky 4-color comics.
See, I thought for sure my first question would be, why am I in a kill room right now? But I'll do that. I'll do that one later.
Okay, perfect.
So how did I come to comics? So I'm my day job is I'm a television producer, and I do a lot of reality shows. And about 13 years ago now, I did a show called Comic Book Men, and I was the supervising producer in season 1, and I to that point I had never had the moment. Like, I think a lot of people when they're younger, they have a moment where someone hands them a comic book and, like the clouds part and they realize they found their people. And that happened to me when I was like 32 years old. So that's what it was. I was working on that show, and watching Kevin and his friends talk about comics as they have since they were kids was a lot of fun. And then I've always been kind of like a big debater of, movie geek stuff and TV geek stuff. So it was just fun to have another medium to argue with my friends about. And my first comic was The Walking Dead. That was very popular at the time. And I was working on an AMC show. So, there was a lot of like kismet there. And so my first, and that's kind of a weird thing for me, because a lot of my friends now who I've made since getting into comics have, really personal stories about superheroes that they remembered reading about when they were kids. And I don't really have that. All my what's the word I want? All my comics that kind of left an impression on me early were indies or sort of outside the superhero world. I went back and did research and read all the superhero stuff, but most of my favorite things have been indie books, and it's what I gravitate towards. So that's my journey in a nutshell. How I got to there.
Awesome, and I love that you're coming at it a little sideways with the indie books. Gives you a different frame of reference for the medium, I think.
Yeah. It's I tend to gravitate towards the some like just fun stuff, like fun. I like horror. I like that. I like the horror stuff. It's like by the time I came to comics, I already knew all the backstories of all these comic book heroes, because they'd been making X-Men movies for 12 years at that point, and they followed so closely all of Chris Claremont's work on that book. Everyone has seen. As soon as you see pearls hitting concrete, you're watching a Batman origin story. So I just knew all those stories already. So going back and reading them was eye-opening, and it's kind of fun to pick out the differences. But I don't have the same kind of like. It didn't leave. That's not the thing that left the impression on me. It was the other stuff. It's where you can kind of like write any sci-fi story you want. You don't need a budget and that kind of thing. I fell in love with the storytelling medium because of that.
Are you spoiling that something happened to Batman's parents?
Oh Lord, I'm sorry. Did you not? Did you not read the first issue of every Batman run ever?
Right.
I thought we were at least up to there,
Surprise! Chad, go ahead.
So, tell us a little bit about the Cloak Room, because I know that you guys have done. This is like your 4th Kickstarter for the book. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about it and the origins of it.
So Scott Snyder, who needs no introduction, he does a writing class workshop through his Substack. So he's got lots of fans and people who just kind of like to watch, like read what he's up to and stuff that are on the Substack mailing list. But then there are some people that pay to take part in class, and so you can listen to him. He'll interview other creators like James Tynan, and he's had on editors and stuff, and Kyle Higgins and Chip Zdarsky, and they'll talk about the process of their own writing process and working with different artists. And there'll be a topic every month when he does a show, when he does a class. So I'm a member, and almost 4 years ago now, a group of students in the class got together and did a big 120 something page anthology of some people in the class are taking it and actually applying it to craft. Some people are just there to listen and to keep tabs on Scott, but some people were, writing stories and wanted to learn from what they were getting from the class and kind of apply it to their work. So a group of students took it on themselves to put together an anthology of stories written by people in the class. It was a huge undertaking, 120 pages. I think it was 18 stories, if I'm remembering correctly. And a year later, a different group of students did the same thing. Those were called the Tales from the Cloakroom, volumes 1 and 2. Also a huge undertaking. That group said, we're probably not going to do this again ourselves. So my partner and I, Veronica Howell, who's also in the class and is the co-editor and co-publisher with me of the series, we took over the project. We renamed it the Cloakroom, and rather than doing an annual gigantic book, which felt like a Herculean task, we turned it into a more like a 3 or 4 times a year, smaller thing. So it's issue based. So we do something between 50 and 70 pages, 3 or 4 times a year, anywhere from 5 to 8 stories, depending on, what stories are coming along at the time and all that. So that's what it is. It's Scott Snyder Presents the Cloakroom. We've done 4 of our issues. They're all available in the current Kickstarter, and you can also get the 2 original anthologies. One of the stories, I think, from the first anthology actually was nominated for an Eisner. The Beekeepers do. So the stories are, we're very, we take it very seriously. Scott's name is on it. I wouldn't want to put out a product that was not like fantastic with his name on it. I wouldn't want to do, I want him to like that we're doing this, and I want to do it for as long as he lets us use his name. As long as he's happy to let us do it. A lot of the stories, some people in the Substack have access to Scott, and they'll pitch their stories to him, and they'll go back and forth on a script and the storytelling in general, or the finished comic pages. And so we publish a lot of stories that actually have Scott's input into the process, which is great. And so, yeah, that's it. It's kind of been a really great educational experience for us, me and Veronica, because it's editorial. It's not writing. We're both writers, but it's a different skill set. It's like a different part of your brain when you're talking to someone who has their idea and you want to make the best version of their idea, not ever say, here's how I would write it. It's a very different kind of mindset. So, but the whole thing's been fantastic. It's a great experience. We take it very seriously and we love it, and we hope to keep doing it forever. We've got at least 2 more issues planned right now.
And doing that, that's how you came up with the Thorny Comics imprint that you guys have?
Well, Thorny Comics predates this book. So Thorny,
Okay.
My daughter's middle name is Rose, and so Thorn Rose. It's a way for her to sort of be involved in a thing. I started writing a book before I started in Scott's class. I write a series called Cicada Samurai, and it's came about during the pandemic. There was a giant brood of cicadas that was coming out in the spring that year. I think it was in 2021. And so I had this idea that's like a combination of anxiety about keeping my kids alive as a dad with 3 kids, or kids just are, attempted suicide machines. That's what they are. They try to kill themselves every day, like all day for the first 8 years of their life. They're just trying to fall down a flight of stairs, or, fall out a window. Like that's what they do. Like that's how you just got to keep them alive for, the first 10 years. And then the real parenting starts. But I had all this anxiety about that, and then the cicadas were coming out, and I kind of brought it all together into this story about an immortal cicada who protects the brood every year from all these things that are trying to kill it. So it's like one parent with 1 billion children to protect. So I was writing that, and I started Thorny Comics as just the imprint to kind of organize all of my comic book stuff, and then this kind of became my third. The Cloakroom, I think, is my second or third project with that imprint.
Yeah, I was looking on Kickstarter. Wasn't there one that you did? It was like a vampire theme book.
Yeah, so that's the book I published that I didn't write. A friend of mine, Rich Davis, was the writer. Another guy who was a buddy of mine, Les Garner, is the artist. They're the creative team. They did a couple of books at like Source Point Press together. Les actually just had a very successful Kickstarter that raised like $16,000 that ended a week or two ago. Yeah, he's doing really well. And Rich writes the World of Dracula books. So the Cult of Dracula was a really big series a few years back. And so this is sort of like the third movement of that story. And so we did one Kickstarter. It was Kickstarter was new to him. That was his first Kickstarter. So that was the vampire one. We don't have a plan right now to go back to that one yet. Cicada Samurai, the first full issue of that is going to be on Kickstarter in a couple of months. There's already a pre-launch page on Kickstarter.
Oh.
So suffice to say, you're a big fan of Kickstarter. What is it about that platform that works so well for you, or how you're making it work, I should say?
So I think it's one of the people who, when I started getting into publishing, it was with a company that all friends of mine, Blue Juice Comics. And these are all people who worked on Comic Book Men and started a comic book company. It's all like my best friends and people I work with in television, like every day. I'm working with one of the guys right now on a project. They were doing a book called Billy the Kit, which was written by Justin Gray. Justin used to do a bunch of stuff at DC back in the day, a lot of stuff with Jimmy Palmiotti over the years.
Yeah, we love Justin.
Yeah, Justin's awesome. He's a buddy of mine. So we made friends while he was doing Billy the Kit, which was picked up by Blue Juice Comics, and he had already had some success on Kickstarter. He did a fundraiser for Billy the Kit, so Blue Juice did a fundraiser for that, and I helped run it, and I just thought it was awesome. It's like such a great, the direct market system is just in constant flux. Especially, it was already in flux. Like the first time my friends explained to me how Diamond distribution functioned, I was like, how is that possible that that's like the system? It was such a bonkers system to me as someone who's like, worked in TV, and I was seeing already streaming platforms and apps like blow television out of the water. And here's this system where people are like filling out Excel documents online to kind of order their books. It just seemed bonkers to me. So the Kickstarter thing is essentially direct to, buyer thing, and it just seemed to make sense as long as you can have people who are happy to come and pay a premium for really our work, like our hard work. It's great. You don't need like in direct market, like Diamond wasn't going to pick you up unless they thought you could sell a few thousand copies to a few thousand people in stores, and it's a huge undertaking to do that. Whereas Kickstarter, if you have 70 people, you can make enough money to pay some of your cost at least to make the book. If you have something that is like has a good campaign page and strikes a chord, you could get 200 people to back your thing and raise a few $1,000s and completely cover the cost of production. I don't think there are definitely people who are getting rich on Kickstarter, but not a lot of them. And most of the creators I know are basically setting goals to break even. And it's just awesome that like if you have an idea, you don't need to market yourself to get like 5,000 people and a giant company to decide to put your book in stores. You can just do it directly to people as long as you're willing to put in a little bit of work and talk to gentlemen like you every once in a while, do a little podcast tour, and just connect directly with the people you want to sell your book to. It's just such a great, like, kind of cut out the middleman thing. And, it just, the timing when I started making my own stuff, this is what was hot. And so I started looking at it, and here I am. It's great.
I think that's the first time I've been called a gentleman.
Yeah, there you go. First time.
Very true.
It's the first time for everything, sir. I've had like creators who are more old school get really mad about Kickstarter, where they're like, you do it one time and then never go back to the well. And it just is like, again, the direct market for indie comics, getting your book in stores is just such a murky, weird thing right now. Like there used to be one avenue and it was closed to most of us. You needed to have so many books ready to go. And now there's so many avenues and they're all different. And there's a dozen creators starting their own like distribution networks and trying to like daisy chain some stores. Like it's crazy. So, Kickstarter is like, here it is. Like, come in, here's the book. You like it? Come buy the book directly from me and I'll mail one to you. Isn't that great? It's such like a simple, novel idea. So,
and that kind of is a good model, seeing how Diamond has been experiencing some issues, and the whole that end of the distribution. Well, there's other distributors, but how that's kind of up in the air right now, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, and even they filed bankruptcy, which sounds terrifying, but they were still functioning. And then they were also trying to do fulfillment for Kickstarters. Like, I got an email from someone there asking if I was interested in them fulfilling my next Kickstarter. So obviously the whole model is changing. They know it. They had to sell off parts of their company because of it. So it's just nice. Like, again, Kickstarter, for as long, it won't last forever. At some point, something will come along that makes it in your book in stores so much easier that Kickstarter will become obsolete, or some other platform will come along. There have been a few that, like, what's the one, Zoop, where it's like specifically for comics, and it's a lot more like curated by the people at Zoop. Like, they hands-on will do every campaign.
Right.
So that's a little. It's like more tailored towards comics, but it's got a smaller audience, smaller visibility. So at some point something will come along and kind of change the game again. But in the meantime,
So why don't you walk us through what's in the latest volume of the Cloakroom?
Yeah. So we've got 5. There are 5, and let me actually pull it up here. There are 5 stories in this issue. So every issue has had at least 5, and at least like 50 pages of comic book in it. So this one has got 5 stories. The first one, we don't have them fully laid out in order yet, but from memory, the first one that I'm going to talk about is The Monsters We Make. It's written by Nate Skactor, who's in the class. And Nate came to us with this story that was actually, the comic was almost complete already. He had a script and he already had some art for it. And it's very cool. Do you actually have the link? Can I go up on the screen, or is that not something that we can do here?
Chad, are you able to do that? Because I'm dumb about this stuff.
No, I'm working off my phone, so.
No big deal. No, but it's totally fine. Totally fine. Yeah, I just thought it'd be easier, but it's all good. We can do it the old-fashioned way. I'll just talk through everything that I have on my screen. So Nate wrote this story, the Monsters We Make, and it's about this kid who has to go home and kind of his childhood home and visit his mom, who in his mind is sort of a monster. So he sees her as this like shadowy figure. You never really see her face, and she's trying to do things that like a mom does, like make you some food and stuff like that. But he views everything as it's all tinged with like their past troubles in their relationship. So it's sort of a psychological story, and it's very cool. It's very moody. The colors are awesome. Nicolo Arcudi, I think, is the artist. I'm pulling this up now as we talk through it. Yeah, so that's the first story. There's another story called The Hunted by Griffey Sarmiento, and that is it's sort of a sci-fi story. There's a couple of military personnel. They've been attacked by something, looked like a giant monster, kind of looks a little bit like the lizard from
Oh yeah, that's right.
Spider-Man, or Croc,
Oh, nice.
the crocodile, and the
Yeah.
Killer Croc from Batman, like that kind of a big lizardy monster thing. Yeah, lizard. So they're trying to figure out how to get back to their battalion and get some information about the exchange. And one of them is having flashbacks the whole time about watching this thing like tear a human being in half. And they encounter one of them and they have to fight it and kind of overcome it in order to survive, and get back to help. Better Angels, it's by Ken Jan. Sort of his origin story is a little bit dark, like what happened to him in his childhood, but it's kind of a there's like it's an origin story that's being told in 2 different timelines at the same time. And he's sort of a it's a superhero who focuses on helping orphans and kids, and you realize like during the course of the story why it's tied to his backstory. And then there is a story called The Only Way Out Is Through, written by Casey Van Heel. This is actually like a really weird one, and it took me forever to even understand the format he was going with. It's like, it looks like I wish I had the thing to send to like put it up on the screen, because it's like it it's one frame. It's 10 pages. Every page is the same layout. It looks like a tapestry from medieval times. And it's this big sort of place with a cabin and a fire pit. It's this huge, like, bird's eye view almost of this big space in the countryside. And it's the story of a squire whose knight gets murdered by a black knight. And so the squire swears revenge. And so every page, it's sort of time passing, a different season, and all the different ways that the squire will kind of destroy everything else in his life on his way to trying to get revenge for the murder that shaped his youth. It's gorgeous. It's a super like atypical comic book.
Yeah.
But it took like, Casey explained it to us, and I was like, what? And then I was like, so every page is a different piece of this big tapestry. He's like, no, every page is the tapestry over and over again, and it changes. And he kind of invented, along with his artists and everything, he invented this way of moving panels around the area to kind of draw your eye to one thing. But there's different stuff going on every page of every part of the story.
That's ambitious.
It was very ambitious. I'm so happy with how it came out, because from the beginning, I'll be really honest, I was like, I don't follow how this is going to work. I don't get it. And my partner, Veronica, was a big champion of it from the beginning. And we had to have all these meetings where we were like, can you explain how this works to me? Because I really don't get it. And then he finally, when I started to see the art, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then it became this puzzle. And that's kind of, this is what I'm saying about this whole thing. I love that these creative people I'm working with on this have these out of the box ideas, and I get to help them figure out how to make it work and tell a story, without being like, I would change everything. Like, we couldn't do that. So the idea was, we came to Casey, we met him at his idea, and we had to get in his head and then figure out what this thing was going to be. And then once it came into existence, we were still figuring out how do we actually tell the story from page to page without completely blowing up what we already did. The last story in this issue is called Secret Sauce. It's by John Auerbach. And the art's by Megan Huang, and letters by Tobin Rassicot. Tobin's done a lot of stuff for us. He's awesome. And that's the story of an elf who runs a sandwich shop in a magical village. Yeah. And she runs out of her secret ingredient, so she has to go off on a death-defying journey into the dark forest to try and retrieve some more of her secret ingredient for her sandwiches.
I kind of love that.
Yeah. And so this is also what I love about this. Like, every story is a completely different genre. We've had straight horror stories, we've had thrillers, we've had straight comedy. Like, this, I learned it was a cozy fantasy. I had never heard this term before, and that's what Secret Sauce is. So, but every couple of days as we're going through this, different writers, different artists, different genres, totally different feel. Like, it's awesome. It's so much fun. So yeah, that's it. And then there's, between that and the other 3 issues, and then the 2 older volumes, like, there are 450, I think, pages of comics available throughout the whole campaign.
Wow.
So how does your experience as a TV producer help you, as an editor for these stories?
Well, so I've always contended that storytelling is storytelling. Like, it doesn't matter the medium. There are different nuances. When you're writing a TV show, there are act breaks and there are episode cliffhangers and stuff. When you're writing a comic book, there are issue cliffhangers and there are, page turn reveals and other things to kind of make you turn the page, So there's like little nuances like that, but a good story, I think, is a good story. And so I've always kind of brought that to those conversations about the overall story of something. And then apart from that, making TV is incredibly collaborative. I'm a TV writer, producer, and director. I don't hold the camera. I'm not the editor. You have to collaborate with other people. And so you kind of learn how to work with other creative people who have their own ideas, and you learn to kind of get the best out of their ideas and try to, craft something cohesive, that makes some sense. So I think that has come into play a lot here, where you're the writers of these stories are all creative. Their artists are obviously creative. My partner is creative. We have very different backgrounds and different opinions about a lot of these stories. We often come at stories and like I'll hate some concept and she'll love it, and we'll figure out what I'm missing or what she's missing, and you collaborate and you just come at it with like an open mind. And so I think that same thing in reality TV and TV producing. You have performers on camera. Everyone has to kind of do what they're supposed to do, bring something to the table, and ideally it all meshes together into something that makes some sense.
What kind of challenges do you face when something doesn't work out? And I'm thinking specifically in TV, you just say cut, and let's try this a different way, or the director does, I guess. And then in comics, though, you're the guy calling the shots. So how do you overcome maybe somebody being a little precious about their story and not wanting to change it, maybe?
Well, for the Cloakroom, Veronica and I went into it from the beginning with this idea that, again, these are not our stories. So what we have to tell everybody, we disclaim all of our notes. We always say, I know what you're trying to go for here. It's hitting me differently than you think it's supposed to hit the viewer, the reader. And we always disclaim and say, like, you don't have to do any of our notes. Like, we like your story. We like it as is. We just think that there's a couple of ways we can sharpen the story or sharpen the visual, or, make a tweak that'll make this thing you think hits really hard, make it hit even a little harder, a little sharper, or soften something that feels too harsh, And so far we've like, there's been very rare. We've had like a couple of times where it's usually not the creators we're dealing with from the class. It's sometimes the people that they are working with, because they're all first-time writers too. A lot of them are first-time creators. And so they'll find somebody who they want to work with as an artist. And sometimes that person has a different opinion, and we often will deal with that person too. And we'll all get together and talk through whatever the disagreements are about creative. But sometimes that person is not really available, and they just don't want to do it. And we have a great deal of respect for the writers and the artists, and for the notion that, like, again, I came to this very late. I'm not always right, and Veronica and I are not always right. So if you can make a case and just say, like, I want to do it this way, and here's why, we tend to back down. And it's very rare that something is like a deal breaker. It's usually literally something like, the tint of the sky. I think you're going for a mood here, but it kind of changes abruptly after a few pages. And can we go back and rethink that? And like, that's it, and they'll go, yeah. And then we go back and we make some tweaks. Like, there hasn't really been a lot of like, what do you mean they won't change the font? That hasn't really been that hasn't been like a huge problem.
So since you started working with the Cloakroom anthology, which stories or writers have really spoken to you in your creative side?
In the Cloakroom, the ones who brought stories into the Cloakroom.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because, like, it's honestly, it's like it's such a lame answer, but it's like nearly one. Like, we've when we first said we were going to do this, we put it out on social media and Discord to all of all the people who've been vocal about being in Scott's class, and we got, like, I think in the first like 3 or 4 weeks, we got like 75 pitches for stories. And like, I think our pitches are open on an ongoing basis. So new people who join the class talk to Scott, he sends them our way, and we talk to them. It happens constantly. So like, I would say we get at least one pitch a week, like on average. We're up to like something like 150 something pitches at this point. And we get to curate it. So the ones that seem like they have a little bit, the person seems really engaged, we set a meeting. If we set a timeline based on how far along they are, how quickly they want to move in doing it. so it's been like working with every one of them has been a pleasure. I will say there's one guy who I hope he's watching this because he'll enjoy that I'm saying his name right now. Shane Cruz has done a couple of stories for us that are sort of like these very short. They're four or 6 pages, and each one is like a twisted fairy tale kind of a thing.
Ooh.
That I just enjoy, like the simplicity of it. Like he did one that was sort of like a like a Halloween story where some kids steal a candy apple from a witch and one of them pays like a very heavy price for the candy apple.
As one does.
Yeah, exactly. And that was in our holiday issue. That was in volume 3. In issue 3. We've done 2 stories. We've published 2 of his stories so far. I think he's going to pitch us something else this summer for the next holiday issue. So I enjoy working on his stories. But Ken Jansen's also has pitched us a few things, and we've talked about other projects outside of the Cloakroom, and he's a lot of fun. Aaron Cohen did a story. He's doing a story for issue 5. He did a story for issue 3 that I really love about. It was a crime in Passover. It was a Passover story.
Oh,
that
wow.
was purely comedic and genuinely made me laugh out loud. Like 2 or 3 times in 10 pages. So, there's been a few who are just like you click with and you kind of really enjoy working with. But there have been a few who've pitched us one story, and I hope they pitch us more. There's 2 guys, Ryan Crow and Nick Fryer, both did stories in earlier issues, and I hope they both pitch us more stuff. It's a lot of fun working with them.
About what is your rate of having to reject stuff because maybe it's not ready yet, or just this isn't the right issue for it yet, or something?
Yeah.
Like that? Sure.
So we've probably done a bad job of rejecting things because we talk ourselves into almost everything in different ways, and it's just a timeline issue. So what we've been trying to do is, if there's a story that we get pitched that is so much like another story we've already done or that we're already working on, we'll send a letter and we'll say, hey, this is actually like some very similar to something we're doing. Please pitch us something else if you want to come back and pitch something else, but we're not going to publish this one. And there have been a few that were like we saw some art and we didn't really like where it was going, and we just kind of passed because Scott's name is on it and we want it to look really good, and sometimes it's just a bad fit for various reasons. Everyone else, what we tell them is, sorry we haven't gotten back to you sooner. I write one of those like every 2 months, like, hey, sorry we haven't gotten back to you sooner. And then we give them the timeline and we say, our first few issues, we selected stories and we prioritized ones that were close to ready first. So there were a couple of stories in that first issue that came to us almost complete. And all we were able to really do is tweak some lettering and a little bit of art. And so, as we go on, we're doing more stories that are starting from just, here's a document. Like Casey Van Heel's the medieval story in this issue. I think he pitched it to us like a year ago. But it's it was such a big undertaking and such like an interesting concept, and we all have day jobs. So we knew it wasn't going to go in an issue like last year. And so we scheduled it for, we had people, we looked at issues 4 and 5 together and we said, okay, these 5 are going to be in issue 4. Issue 5, here are like the 7 or 8 that we're looking at. We'll contact all of them and put them on a timeline and see who hits the deadlines. And so that's kind of how it goes. Like we have a backlog of probably still 100 stories that we haven't really completely dug into or met with the creators yet. But we tried to reach it back to everyone and just say, the next 2 issues are booked. That's the next 7 or 8 months. The 3rd issue this year, issue 6, is going to be another holiday issue. So please pitch us a holiday story, and that's how you get moved up the list. And then, if you have a story that's not in issues 4 or 5, or it's not a holiday story, we're talking about 2026 at this point. Like early 2026. So we've just tried to be transparent about it. We can't move that quickly. Just 2 of us. We both have day jobs.
So I know you said that there's at least 2 more issues coming out. Is this something that you would like to continue and make a regular thing, seeing how you have such a response?
Yeah, I mean, I would do this thing until Scott tells me to stop. The minute Scott is no longer happy to put his name on it for whatever reason, he's been super supportive. He retweets when we're promoting. He mentions us in the newsletter. He mentions us in the monthly podcast sometimes when we have a campaign going. He's incredibly supportive, and for as long as he's happy to do that, we share all the stories with him. We don't get a ton of feedback. He's very busy. I don't know if you know this, guys, but he writes a lot of books right now. He's a little bit booked.
What? He does?
He's a bit
Oh,
bit busy these days.
His name is out there in the world.
Yeah.
Up and
I don't
comer.
know. I really don't understand how the guy, and I'm a pretty busy guy, but I don't understand how that guy functions. I really don't get it. But
Yeah, because he's got kids too.
yeah,
Like,
and he goes and he
that's
posts things.
done.
He's like, "Hey, I'm in Disney World with my kids, or I'm at my kid's graduation." And
Yeah.
I'm like, how is that possible? But clearly he's more organized than me. He has a fantastic assistant, Tyler. I'm sure Tyler keeps him on his schedule. But he's, for as long as he's happy to let us do it, we'll keep doing it. And for as long as there's a class and people are willing to help fund it and kind of get it out there, we'll keep putting it out. What I'd like to start doing is in between issues of the Cloakroom is do more of my own stuff and publish other projects and kind of get some other things off the ground. Because what's nice about doing an anthology, just one issue of an anthology, is you make 5 stories. There are 10 creators. Maybe as many as 20 creators if you count the lettering and if the art isn't also include colors. You've got 4 people making each story. You're building a network of people. And so if you name a genre of comic, if I had an idea for some sci-fi travel fantasy and I want it to look a little bit like like a kind of goofy Archie comic, I can think of 2 artists to go after who would nail that. If I want to do something with Gothic art, like I can think of at least 2 people that I would call right now and get them on board to make the story. So it's been amazing. We've done that now times 4 issues, almost five issues now. So it's fantastic. I love it. I love making the connections. I love helping other people get their stories out. And I'll do it for as long as Scott is okay with it.
So you talked about some future ambitions of yours. Is there anything that you care to talk about just yet, or is it all under lock and key?
Oh, no, I don't have any secrets from you, Matt.
Woo!
There are 2 more issues of this. With this series, what we would love to do is once we get up to some number of stories, I would love to repackage it and sell the whole thing to a publisher and put it in stores and kind of do traditional distribution.
I hear Best Jacket is pretty good.
That's a good publisher, I've heard. Yeah, I think I know some of their stuff. I happen to have covers that have the guy's name on it already, so maybe. So that's a longer term conversation. This project may never go past what we're doing right now, which gives all these creators an opportunity to get published. And but if we can put it in stores, like that's a nice little feather in your cap. Like somebody bought my book in a store in the middle of Illinois, and I've never been there, and they don't know me, but they saw my book and they liked it and they picked it up. So there's that. My own stuff, Cicada Samurai, I did a short comic. It's too long ago now, like a year and a half ago, that came out. Did that on Kickstarter. It did very well, actually, and so I am an idiot for not following up on it sooner. But I have another issue written that I'm still tweaking, and I'll send to the artist very soon. Her name is Megan Landro. She's fantastic, like fantastic, and I'll launch that Kickstarter ideally in August or September of this year. And then I would love to. I have a 5-issue arc for that planned. I'd love to just do that story. And I do another story called The Grizzly Crew that my son and I write together.
Oh, nice.
Oh, nice. How's that experience working with your offspring?
It was amazing. Like he gives notes to the artist.
Okay.
He's 9.
I love it.
Yeah, he was 6 when he came up with the idea. That's kind of how this happened. He just came up to me. I mean, it's a longer story, but he came up to me and saw some stuff on my computer and started asking me questions, and they started asking me to have. It was Midjourney when Midjourney came out,
Mm-hmm.
and like everybody else, I was looking at it to try and figure out, is this the end of the world or not? And I had a bunch of random stuff like on the screen that I was asking it to make just to see what it was capable of. And he was standing next to me, and he said, "What is this thing?" And I'm like, "It's an artificial intelligence art generator." And he's like, "What's that?" And I said, "It's you tell it what you want, and it steals from other people and makes something that sort of looks like what you think you want or whatever." I explained it in some really kind of politicized by like way, and he was at the time I think 6, and he was like, "Huh." And so he started asking me questions. He's like, "Can it make a Spider-Man monkey?" And I was like, "Oh, let me take a look." And I typed in Spider-Man monkey, and it made a little weird thing. And a minion wizard was one, and then he said a pirate bear, and I made the pirate bear, and it made this like horribly disfigured, like silhouetted pirate in like a captain's hat, and he was terrified. He's terrified of bears, and so he just zoned out and started staring at it. And I went back. I'm like, "All right, you're having a moment." I went back to what I was doing and just started typing. And suddenly he started pitching me this whole story about the pirate bear. He just I'm telling you, in 15 seconds of staring at this thing, he goes, "His name is Captain Grizzly." I was like, "What?" "His name is Captain Grizzly. He's the captain of a pirate ship. They go around fighting pirates and looking for treasure. And it looks like gold, but it's not gold. It's wax, and when you squeeze it, it's filled with honey." And I was like, What are you talking about?" And I'm like, "Stop talking." And he goes, "It's called the Grizzly Crew." And I went, "Stop talking." And I got out a notebook and I started making notes. And so we came up with a bunch of characters, and I sent it to my friend Nick Justice, who's an artist that I love. And he sent us some character designs. And I showed him to my son, and he didn't just go, "Cool, that's awesome." He was like, "The koala bear character should have a second thumb. They have 2 thumbs, Dad." I was like, "What?"
Oh,
"What?" He's like, "The koalas, they have 2 thumbs. It's like they have a second thumb and 3 fingers on the other side." And I was like, "No," and I had to Google it, and he was right. And they have 2 thumbs, you know? So I had to give Nick a note and say, "Draw another thumb on the koala bear." And that was it. And so we did that. I haven't finished publishing that book yet. Nick has a lot more of the pages now, so we're almost done. But we did a Kickstarter for that last year that did okay. So, I'll finish that because it's fun working with him on it.
So, as someone who sits in on Scott's, classes or whatever they are, what's the biggest takeaway point that you yourself have heard him say, or somebody that he's talking to say that you've?
So I'll tell you, there's a writing like advice trope that you hear everywhere, and it always infuriated me because you hear it all the time, and it just is kind of a way to shut down creativity. And it's the idea that write what you know. When people used to say that, it always drove me nuts because it's like, if you're interested in something and you don't know shit about it, like it's nice to now I have a reason to go learn about it and do a deep dive. And so the whole thing always drove me nuts. Like it's something I'm interested in. I don't know anything about it. So I was just angered by that expression. And then there was one week where Scott was talking about it, and he never said write what you know, but he was talking about that concept. And he had a different spin on it. And it wasn't like write what you know. It was more like, what are you afraid of? Like if you're writing a horror story, what are you afraid of? And how do you make that the thing that the character is afraid of? So, this is what I applied to Cicada Samurai. I had 3 kids who were all, like under 10 years old. This is during the pandemic, and then for the few years after. And just as a parent, trying to keep 3 kids alive in normal times is like insane. It's just an insane pressure. And so that made me really anxious for a while. And so I had a lot of anxiety about it. And I was like, what am I afraid of? I'm afraid of something happening to one of my kids. And at the same time, I was obsessed with cicadas. So it became this whole story of taking that thing, right where I know what it's like to be a parent who's afraid that something's going to happen to their kids. I know what that's like. It's not, I don't know anything new about parenting that other people don't know. I don't know about cicadas, anything that you don't know. It's not literally right what you know. It's not like if you're a mailman, you can only write about the mail. Like that's not. It was a different interpretation of that same kind of write what you know. It was more like write what you feel, and that I've applied that to everything. It's one of the first things I ask every creator in the Cloak Room, where I'm like, okay, there's a fun concept here, but I have no idea why you're writing it. Where did this come from, and why is this story the one you want to tell right now?
Right.
And that's how you get at the heart of like, what are you trying to say? Are you trying to be scary? Or are you trying to be funny? Are you trying to make me laugh at something you're afraid of? Like, what's the goal here, based on what you know about you and why you wrote this? And then you can kind of help bring it out. But that's the thing that I think my takeaway has been, that is like, not write what you know, but write what you feel. It's kind of he never said that either. I'm kind of paraphrasing, but that's what he meant.
It's pretty revelatory, actually.
It's kind of cool, right? Like, it's because I've always heard that, and I've always been like, oh, shut up. Like, right.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
shut
like
up.
nails on the chalkboard.
Yeah, it's literally just like a way to shut down creativity. And I'm always like, no, just write. And then, but write what you feel is like, what are you really excited about? Write that story. Write about someone who's excited about that. And he over the course of his class, he's talked about applying that concept to everything. Like, I'm trying to think of there was a really good example recently that he talked about, where it was like, going back to Batman, he told some story about the what are they afraid of? And they're afraid of changing Batman. And so what did he do? That's what he did. He made Batman like scary and cool again by completely changing a bunch of his backstory. It's just a clever kind of way to look at stuff.
Right on. So, on your day job, how are you managing to find time to balance these two worlds? Because I can imagine being a TV producer is pretty time consuming.
The answer is very poorly. It's well, the day job takes precedent. That's how I'm paying all the bills.
Sure.
And so this is something that I focus on when I'm between television projects mostly, and then on weekends. Like, doing this on a weeknight is, at this point in my life, very unusual. And I normally will do these kind of recordings on like a Sunday night or something, and they get released later. So, the balancing act can be hard. And I think what happens is the comics, I love them. I would love to turn it into a bigger career later, as I'm sort of building an audience and building a connection to people who like what I'm doing. But I don't have that kind of connection with people yet that I can just stop doing the day job. So the day job takes precedence, and I spend most of my days doing the day job. And this is sort of a nights and weekends and extra time thing. If I had more time, we would do 4 of these a year, and I would also be on, issue 6 of the Cicada Samurai. So I guess the answer is pacing.
There you go.
Yeah.
Course, then you said you've also got kids that you're raising, so you got to squeeze them in somewhere.
That's right.
3 of them.
3 of them. 3 little buggers.
Yeah. So, about the Kickstarter specifically, what rewards level are you guys offering? To get people to support you.
Yeah, so we have a few. We have there are 3 different covers. You can get any. I don't do the thing where there's like one standard and then others are variants that are more expensive. So you pick any of the 3 covers that you want, and each one is $15. On Kickstarter, that's a pretty good price point. You normally, people do like $15 or $20 or $25 for one issue of a normal size comic with one 22-page story in it. And like I said, this is like 50 something pages of comics. So it's a pretty good price, and all the old issues are also on there, so you can catch up. That's $15. If you want virgin covers, we do $18 for those, and then we have tiers where you can get everything we've ever done in one tier, and you save like 10% or 20% if you do that. We also have retailer tiers, so there are 2 of those where we basically charge the retail shops what it costs us to print the book. So if you have a store and you want 10 copies, it costs you like, I think it's like $6.50 per copy. So it's like $65 or $67. That's like, and then we do the same thing for 20. You want 10 or 20. There are 2 tiers for retailers. And you can pick. The retailers can choose if you're the first time supporter, you don't want to start on issue 4, even though they're all closed ended and it's not a story arc or anything.
Right.
But if you come on for issue 4 and you want 5 copies of issue 1, 5 copies of each issue, we can do that. We let you pick from the back issues if you want, mix and match.
That's cool.
And so we have all those. Yeah, and then we have all those, and then we have a bunch of digital options too. Especially those are popular for people overseas that don't want to pay for shipping. Shipping is very hard these days.
And did I read the Kickstarter page correctly that all the money for the project goes back to the creators?
Yes, Veronica and I don't pay ourselves anything. What we do is we pay everyone up front. We actually pay when the Kickstarter money comes through, but we pay each creator a fee per page of their story so that they can use that money to work with, to kind of find a better artist if they want to work with somebody who needs a little bit of money. A lot of the creators also have day jobs and expenses and stuff. And so, making comics is expensive. So we're raising money and we figured let's share it with them from the beginning. And then we have the cost of printing the book and the cost of shipping the book to us. And then we do we charge shipping to the backers. But the idea is that once an issue becomes profitable, if we make enough money in the Kickstarter that we actually cover all of our costs, and the cover art and the design work, we paid for all of that out of pocket. So once we cover all of our costs, our hard costs, any money made above and beyond that gets split up among the creators of the book. So we're not paying ourselves a fee or a salary or anything from any of these. We don't really get to keep a dime. And both of us have come to realize recently that we're actually out of pocket quite a bit. Everyone who does this is, everyone who makes comics this way is a little bit out of pocket. It's not really like, again, some people get rich doing this, but most people don't get into it to get rich. Mm-hmm. That's not why we're here. So, but yeah, we all the money goes back to the creators, and we wanted them to kind of reap the benefits. I'll be really honest. So far, like our issues have not yet turned a profit. We hit our funding goal every time, and that's the number, that we're kind of okay being out of pocket. Like that's how much we were okay being out of pocket per issue. So we're close on the first two issues now. We're actually very close to having to cut our first, after the fact checks to artists and creators, which is cool.
Definitely.
Yeah, most definitely.
So are you reading anything these days? I know you said that you are a relatively new reader to comics and you kind of got into it during your work with the comic book men show, but are you reading anything these days?
I got two things I'm reading. I think I had one of them here. I have one of them in my hand, but the other one, oh, hold on. I'm gonna show them both to you. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh my gosh, it really is a torture dungeon.
I'm telling you, dude. This is my basement. We just moved into this house, and the basement hasn't been they haven't put walls up yet. We're actually doing it starting this weekend. So when we get together for the next one, there'll be walls behind me.
It'll be less feel roomy.
Yeah, exactly. This is something I picked up at a convention. I was next to Charles Paul Wilson III. He was across the convention from me in sort of a kids section. It's this like awesome little story called The Stuff of Legend.
Okay.
And it's a hardcover, and it's like it's got a little bit of like a Toy Story vibe, but it's like this kid gets abducted by the boogeyman through his closet, and his toys have to kind of band together and go into this really dark, evil place, and it's kind of spooky illustration. That's why I picked it up.
Hell yeah.
I really liked it. It's written by Mike Raked and Brian Smith. I'm like halfway through the first book. There are two books, and I have the second one too. I'm going to read that. And the other one is Donnie Cates and Lissandro Esterin and Dee Kniff, and it's Redneck. So this is something that Donnie Cates was working on. I don't think they finished it before he had his injury and kind of had to take a step back. So I didn't realize that. So I picked up the first like 5 volumes. I read the first volume. I loved it. I picked up the next few volumes, and I've still been reading through it. I posted something on Blue Sky about it, and I tagged the colorist, Dee Kniff, and I was reading it, and I was like, hey, I love this story. And he responded to me and said, hey, I'm sorry, that's awesome. Thanks so much. It's a shame that one didn't get like a real ending yet. And I was like, what? No. It's like I'm reliving that time. Did you guys watch Firefly when that was on TV? Remember that show?
Yeah.
Do you remember how like Fox, it was an early Joss Whedon show. And it was like Nathan Fillion and all these, Alan Tudyk was in it. It was all these great people. And Fox kept screwing with it. So the episodes aired out of order, and then it was canceled. And it was canceled like midway through the run of the season. So like you had to buy the DVDs later to even just finish the first season. And even then there's no ending. And then you got to do a movie that was sort of a sequel to it. But everyone was so angry, and that's how I felt online the other day. But I'm still reading that, and that's a great story. So those are the two things. I mean, like I said, indie, one's a kid's story, and this is like Redneck is totally not a kid's story. But that's where my head's at. I like to, read one when I wake up in the morning to get my blood going. I read one before I go to bed at night to calm down and go to sleep.
Hey man, whatever gets you going and keeps you entertained is gold.
I'll tell you the next one I'm going to read. This is right here. My buddy Travis Gibb does this. The Cthulhu Invades series. He's done all these on Kickstarter.
Yeah.
So I just got this one. This one's another hardcover, and it's
I know
Cthulhu
Travis.
Invades Fairy Tales. Yeah. I met Travis at a MegaCon like 6 years ago, and then he's kind of been someone who has a Discord group with a lot of creators, and so we
he's
Are
a
you
big
in there?
champion of the. No, but I know. I know he's a big champion of Kickstarter and indie creators and stuff like that.
Yeah, he's had a few books that have done really well, and then I think his first Cthulhu book broke like $50,000 or $60,000. Like it was a runaway success.
Yeah.
And he's done a couple since then. That was a while ago, and then he's done a few since then that have done really well too. But he keeps it going. They've done like Invades Neverland, Invades Oz.
Yeah.
I
told him he needs to do Cthulhu Invades Candyland.
That's funny. That's really funny.
That's good.
That's very funny.
So Jerry, as we wrap our hour up, give us, if you would, one final thought, one final pitch, however you want to put it, on Scott Snyder's The Cloak Room.
Okay, so the Cloak Room, it's a great anthology series. Like I really love all the stories we published. There's a ton of stories in there. There are, again, relative to what a lot of Kickstarters will charge, the prices are not crazy. And it's a fantastic way to directly support actual indie creators who are a lot of them are just publishing their first story for the first time. I would say out of the 30 something stories we've done now, 90% of them are brand new people who've never done this before. So it's real true indie stuff. And the Kickstarter is live for another 13 days. I think it goes down on the 25th or 26th of June. So, that's it. Get in. And then the last thing is if anyone wants to just keep track of me and what I'm doing, I have a Substack, jerrycarita.substack.com. And anyone who's a subscriber to my Substack gets a $4 discount on shipping for anything you buy through a Kickstarter that I'm running.
Cool. And are you doing any conventions or shows to promote things?
I don't have any scheduled right now. I think
okay.
Ideally next year I'll start hitting them again. I took a break from them for a little bit, mainly because I didn't have. I want enough of my own stuff before I do that.
Makes sense. And where can we find you on social media?
The Substack is #1, jerrycarita.substack.com, but I'm also at Thorny Comics basically everywhere.
Okay.
I'm on Twitter. I barely use it. I'm on. Yeah. I auto post to Facebook and Instagram. I would say I'm most active on Substack and Blue Sky.
All right. Okay. You heard it here first. Jerry Carita, thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight. And the book, now live on Kickstarter, is Scott Snyder's The Cloak Room. And you should absolutely back it because, we always talk at the end of the episode of every week about how you should support local comics. This is a great way to get out there and support new creators, fresh voices, fresh talent. They look really amazing, Jerry.
Thank you.
And this is how comics thrive. This is how they grow and evolve. So do the right thing. Chad, who are we talking to next week?
Next week we are on a break.
Next week we go on a break, and in 2 weeks, I think it's a big name.
Rob Guillory.
Rob Guillory. Can't wait.
Farmhand.
It's going to be exciting stuff. Well, Jerry Carita, thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight. And all of you, thank you for listening. Get out there, do some righteous things in the world. Support local comics, support local bookstores, local music, local art. Just don't be a dick. We love you. We'll see you next time. Peace to LA.